So it's 2 o'clock. I think we're going to start. Just gonna wait.
I'm not, I just came for the information.
Came for the friendship.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Steve, and today I want to talk to you about extending what happens during the summer, spring, summer, and fall, and extending it into the winter time. So we're going to talk about gardening when it gets cold and what you can do. Now, yesterday I was outside working in the gardens and it was 25 degrees Celsius. It was beautiful. I sent an email to my friends in Edmonton where it was -1. And so this is probably better suited right now for them than for us because we're enjoying such warm weather. But one of the things that happens in Zone 6, that's our zone for growing, is that sometimes around late October, gardeners have this urge to pull everything out of their garden. And that is not necessarily something that you have to do in our region. In our region, our growing season can continue. In fact, with how close we are to the equator, we get enough sunlight all through the winter time for plants to continue to grow, no matter what the temperature is. And so even if the temperature drops to just above 0 and plants are getting light, they will continue to grow. Of course, a lot of plants that are able to overwinter, their growth will slow right down. But it doesn't mean that they stop growing. And that's the same thing that happens for vegetables as well, and herbs. The ones that can overwinter often can continue to grow, and some can even flourish if we just give them a little bit of help.
Is this carrot?
No.
I just picked it up on the ground in front of the mission.
No.
Is it carrot?
It is not carrot.
It looks like it. I wonder what it is.
I'm not sure which variety this one is, but that's not carob. So
Squirrel like it anyway.
yeah, you could try it. Round it all up. I don't think it is
I
though.
can't hear you.
I don't think it is. So yeah. So when we plant plants for vegetables in the summertime, what are some that come to mind that everybody plants that love warmth? Tomatoes. What else? Cucumbers. Beans. Okay. So tomatoes and cucumbers, peppers, all those types of plants. Those plants are very. You could join if you want. You can come and join. We're going to be talking about winter vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can join us.
Okay, thank you.
So those are all tropical plants, which means if they were growing somewhere where we didn't have a hard cold, they would continue to grow. They would grow for their full life cycle. But up here in southern Ontario, once it gets a cold frost, our tomatoes, our cucumbers, our beans even, our peppers, those eggplants, those things, they're going to die because they've got that, they get that frost. But that's only some of the types of vegetables that we grow. There's a high number of vegetables that they love cool weather. In fact, they prefer cool weather. And if they are taken care of, they can actually grow all the way through the winter with just a little bit of help. I've posted everything that I'm saying today. I posted on our garden webpage, so you'll be able to go to that page, see the pictures I'm going to show you, and all the information we have is on that website. It's a really easy website. It's www.wegarden, lettuce.ca. And Rob takes care of that for us, wherever Rob went to, but he takes care of that for us. And everything I say today will be there. So, some of the first things that we plant when it gets warm in the spring are the same things that we can plant in the fall. For instance, lettuces. If you have any garden space right now, it would be a perfect time to plant some lettuce. And you're probably thinking, but the snow is going to come. Lettuce loves cool weather. Lettuce will germinate just a few degrees when the soil gets just a few degrees above zero, and you don't even need a big garden plot to be able to do this. You can even grow a nice plot of lettuce in a container. And I'm going to use a container demonstration for just like this today. So a container like this with a little bit of with a few holes in the bottom can even serve as a patio lettuce bed that you can grow. Other things that can be grown in containers like this is you can grow like arugula, which is like a leaf lettuce, mizuna, which is the pointy leaf one, sort of looks like lettuce as well. It's my favorite. Mustard greens, radishes, and the cold weather favorite for our area is spinach. Spinach will grow all winter long here, even when it's chilly, and I'm going to show you how today. And so when I talk about growing these vegetables, I want you to remember that I'm not talking about having a giant plot as big as the tables here, or even half the size. Anything that we talk about here today can either be grown in a small container or in a large container under what I'm going to show you, which is called a low tunnel or a hoop house. So we're going to get to that. So things such as arugula, carrots, green onions, kales, kohlrabi, Chinese cabbage, cauliflower, cabbages, the big heads of cabbage. You know, my mom, I wish I had a picture of it. I don't have it with me right now, but my mom actually grows full heads of cauliflower in a hanging pot. You know, the ones you might put petunias in? You might buy a hanging basket. She covers it with a nice little light cloth, like a cheesecloth, and she takes care of it every day, and she hangs it on a garage. And she'll grow a full head of cauliflower in a tiny little container for hanging flowers, which just goes to show you, if you take care of them well and you feed them well and you have it in good soil, you don't need a whole lot of space to grow something incredible. It would probably be a little more difficult if she was trying to do that with broccoli because it grows a little taller, or kale or something. And the other nice thing with what she does is when she puts that cheesecloth over top, it allows enough of the light to get through and it prevents the cabbage butterflies from laying eggs in there and eating your crop all up. So this is just a reminder that you don't need a ton of space to grow a little bit of food. So things such as peas, rutabaga, Swiss chard, turnips, all these things, they're all cold loving. And these cold weather veggies, I put the list on the blog post just so everyone can have that as well. So I'm going to show you what a lot of beds that are getting ready for winter might look like. I'm just going to turn this around. You can see that, like our grass, the grass here is still green, and you're going to see that this person here is just starting to get ready for winter. And these here are thin pieces of rebar or like metal fencing, like hot wire, and they usually come in like 4x8 sheets, and they're super helpful for gardeners. And what I do is I just bend it in an arc around my boxes, and I stick it right in the dirt along the inside of the boxes, and then I put my plastic over top. Now that's a pretty fancy job that this person has done. They've done a really nice job of securing the ends. But when you have a cover like that type of cover can last all winter long and accelerate your spring as well, bring spring earlier to your spot. But say you are on an apartment porch. It doesn't have to be as fancy as that. If your box was a big box, it could be as simple as using some 4mm plastic. This stuff is super cheap. And it could be as simple as wrapping it around your box like this. And with the dirt in there, it's heavy. And something just like as simple as that, or using a couple bricks or stones, or just tightening it up like this, something as simple as that is going to continue your crop growing even when it gets cold outside. So that's how simple this is. Now the folks that you see here, they've used either some rebar or they've used some conduit, which I'm going to show you, and they've made it a little higher so it looks like that. We're going to come back to this in a bit. I want to show you another picture, and this is going to be a picture of a gentleman who laid out how he used some plastic conduits for his construction of his boxes. So this person here has a large garden box, right? And what they did is they picked up some plastic piping or conduit, which is very cheap, and they made their hoop house out of that. Sometimes at the garden stores and the farm stores you can buy kits, and it's called a hoop house kit or a low tunnel kit. And we did this about 10 years ago, and I'm going to tell you that it was a bad idea. These really nice kits are made of steel, and the steel sits in the dirt, and the dirt is wet, and they rust super fast. So that's why I prefer to use something that's plastic, because it doesn't rust. Another thing that we do, and I'm super cheap, and I want to talk about another way of keeping things warm. Here's an example right here of those plastic kits I was telling you about. You see those nice round plastic? Those are fantastic. They look great. They're super easy. You just drape the plastic over, and it's about 4 feet wide, so it's perfect because that's, really, really simple, but they rust out really quickly. So I'm going to show you another super duper way that I like to do things, because you see those windows on the curbs all the time? Well, I'm a real collector of junk. I hate throwing things away. I hate seeing junk go to the landfill when it can be used. And these are old windows, old storm windows that people have replaced their windows with. I actually have those windows on the side of my greenhouses. My wife seems to not think it looks pretty. I think it looks awesome. She doesn't. So she put a drapery so she doesn't have to look at them. But yeah, so you often see these on the curb, and you can use these old windows to make very, very simple cold frame boxes at your garden. Often what I do is I'll screw 2 of them together like this to make a triangle, and then I just line the triangles up on my raised box. And then in the springtime, when it gets too warm, I just lift them off my raised boxes, and I wait until the winter time again, and I'll reuse them this year. So as much as there's going to be Lee Farm store, I guess it's coming here, as much as you can order stuff over the internet, and as much as you can buy these fancy kits, there's really no need to. A little bit of plastic like this, which is, you only have to have something as strong as a 4 mil. I think this is 6 or 8. A little bit of plastic and something to pull it over, to drape it over, or some old storm windows like this are going to serve you just as good. Now take a look at this plastic in the wintertime. This is taken in the East Coast, and as you can see that the snow is right on top of it, and you can see she's pulling it off, and underneath of it is growing spinach. And so the lady in this here tells the story about how she went out on New Year's Eve and gathered enough spinach and greens from her from her low tunnel to make a solid for the event that they would have. Hi, Abo. How are you? So that's an example. So that this year will probably be hovering right around 1, 2, 3 inside. The snow helps to insulate it, and even a little bit of sunlight during the daytime will bring that right up to 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees. In Windsor, it's very, very easy to have. In my gardens in the winter time, I have no problem having full beds of greens growing right through the winter time. With that plastic covering or with the old windows over top, when the sun comes up, it keeps it nice and warm, and it heats up that soil, and the heat is retained through through the nighttime. So it's very easy to continue to grow your crops over the winter. Another thing that people do when they do this is they often plant in straw as well, or mulch. So, did you have a question?
Yes. Yes. I'm just confused. So, is this the people that we met in Glengarry?
Pardon? Is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. This is
Glenn, you might be talking to me. Yeah,
Glengarry.
I haven't met you yet. Yeah, I was the one who called you. Yeah, just to.
Yeah. So.
I never met them. Yeah. The people that I met them in Glengarry were different with those people right now.
It's everybody.
Yeah, it's everybody. It's not just for the Glengarry.
Okay, thank you.
For instance, in the Glengarry garden is about this shape. And if they picked up a few of the old window frames that are on the curbs and they just put them up against one another over one of their rows and planted lettuces in there or any of the greens that I mentioned, they would grow. They don't. When stuff grows in the wintertime, it doesn't require the same amount of inputs, which means you don't have to water it as much. You don't have to worry about weeds because the weeds don't grow. It grows slower and very nicely. You don't have to worry about the pests, so it's very low maintenance. So these are some of the ways that things grow in our area. Here's an example of a homeowner they put their window boxes right beside their house. So what happens here in this case is the heat from the house keeps those boxes warmer than if it was separated from the house. And then they just put a little bit of plastic along there. But if you had a south-facing house and you put your cold frames right along there, it would be the same thing, even though it's not quite attached. So the first half, or the first point of this workshop is to let people know, just because the snow may be coming, it doesn't mean that you need to stop your growing. There are many different ways that you can continue to grow, and I'm just going to review them for you right now. If you have an apartment, you can use boxes just like you see out there, those cedar boxes. You can just cover them with plastic, just like this. So you just put a couple coat hangers. If all you had was coat hangers, you can use coat hangers. But you just need something to keep it up here, and you're creating this little bubble, and you have some come down on this end too. And just something as simple as that is going to keep your garden growing. Now remember, when I said that you could keep growing through the winter time, I'm excluding the tropical plants. So no tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, stuff like that. They will not stay. It's just the cold hardy plants that I listed earlier. In fact, most people don't even harvest their carrots and their beets until there's been a good frost, because the cold will actually make them sweeter. So you can leave your carrots in there, you can leave your beets in there, you can even sow them right now. Put them in, and they will slowly grow. Problem is, when I start growing beets at this time of year, they never make it to maturity because I keep eating all their leaves. Because some of us like to eat the beet leaves as well, and they're very tasty, and they will grow all the way through wintertime as well. Slower than in the summertime, but they will continue to grow. So that's another example. I'm going to just throw up a quick other one for you. Yes. So what I would be doing if I was growing, if I had stuff growing, for instance, look at this one. Here's a nice backyard garden, and there's snow on the greens, and the snow is not going to harm the greens at all. They're going to be just fine. Then that snow is going to melt, and I don't need to water them. So the only thing I'm doing with if I have greens in a low tunnel, or if I have them under windows, all I'm doing is ensuring that when I press down in the dirt, that it's not powdery dry. I want it to be damp, but I don't want it to be soaking wet. So that's the dampness will actually help retain some of the heat. You'll know that in the south, like in Florida, when they think that they're going to have a heavy frost on the oranges, they'll spray the trees with water to prevent the frost from creating any damage. And the same thing applies in the wintertime for us. If there's humidity inside of that tunnel, if the soil is damp, then it's going to prevent things from getting too cold in there as well. So it's similar to your house plants, is you want the soil, so that it will hold, if you pressed on it, it would hold a shape, but you don't want it to be so dry that it's powdery. So if it's powdery, then it's too dry. If you stick your finger in there and it's sopping wet, then that's no good too, because, and I mentioned this quite a bit, the roots of the plant, unless it's a water-based plant, a plant that lives in a lake or in a marsh or something like that, if it's meant to grow in soil and it's sitting in water, then it's not getting oxygen and it's going to die. It's going to rot. So you don't want your plants to need a life jacket. That's too wet. Okay? They shouldn't be floating in water unless it's a lily or it's rice or something that grows in the water, right? So that's what you want to make sure the soil, you can hold onto it and it will hold its shape. Okay, it shouldn't be so dry that it's powdery like this. You need to be able to form a little like ball, or it needs to feel like mud. That's what it needs to feel like. Other ways is to spread some straw on top of your beds or on top of your container, like the container box they have here, which I'm going to help them extend their season. Okay. Other great things that you can grow during the winter time that you shouldn't be pulling up is you shouldn't be pulling up your parsley. Your parsley will grow all winter long. It's part of the carrot family. It has a nice long root on it, and you can keep trimming and keep your parsley growing with just a tiny little bit of care all winter long. I have parsley and chives that grow all winter long with just a little bit of help. In fact, I'm in trouble if we run out of parsley and chives at home. I have a real demand for that from all three of the ladies in my household. They require fresh chives and parsley all year round, and it's apparently my job to provide that for them. So that's something that's really, really easy to do. So what I want to do right now is I want to stop and let you guys ask any questions you want about your specific situation, or maybe you want to try this and you want to tell me what your situation is, and I want to try to answer your questions. Who has some questions? There's a question.
Because I get my daughter, she is 22 years old, but he left to make growing everything like vegetable everything inside of my backyard. But after that, those things they die. Yeah. They damage always.
Okay.
And then she tried. And then after that, the little one who is 18 years old said that bring the black is called what? Like when you're making the greenhouse.
Yes.
And then the covering.
The plastic.
Yeah. The plastic.
Yeah.
The black plastic. And then the little one tell where the bring this one. then they're going to be good.
Yes. Did it help?
And then the neighborhood said that no, you guys, you're going to bring us the mosquito. Yeah.
You're going to bring, they thought it would bring a mosquito.
Yeah.
Okay, so were they suggesting that you put the black plastic on the ground? Or over the top?
Over the top.
Over the top.
Yeah, because she bring them from Kenyan Tire, and then when we put them down on the ground, and then 2 to 3 days, they gone, they die.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any experience with that? Did you see any of that? No? Did you, Sarah? You see any of that? So, the only time I use black plastic is there's a type of black plastic mulch that is that is compostable, and I will put it on the ground, and then I'll poke holes in it, and I'll plant plants in those holes, and the black plastic will heat the soil up quicker, and your plants will grow better. But as far as putting it as a tunnel over top of like a greenhouse frame, I wouldn't recommend that. In regards to your mosquitoes, the only time black plastic would attract any type of mosquitoes is if it was collecting water. So the only way that you will get mosquitoes is if you have water that's sitting around that's going stagnant. That's the only time in southwestern Ontario. That's the only thing that will attract mosquitoes, is if there's standing water. So puddles of water, containers of water, that's the only time you'll ever get mosquitoes. If they try to tell you anything else, it's not true. Okay? So remember that. Only thing that brings mosquitoes or bugs is standing water. And if you're going to use black plastic, I would recommend using it on the ground, poking some holes and planting your plants inside of it. It prevents the weeds from growing around it, and it will heat up the soil and keep the soil warm, increasing the root growth in the soil. Okay? Does that answer your question? Or?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So nothing else will attract mosquitoes except standing water.
Brown hair. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm easy to get a hold of. You can also email me and say, come and see what I'm talking about. And I will come out and look.
She's going to school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
most of them. But I'm not together with them. But I just go and help.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you and you know Huey over at Glengarry, Huey that does the gardening there, Big Mustache, he does gardening at Glengarry,
The one.
the square one over at Glengarry.
Yeah, I always.
If you wanted help with that, just contact me and we'll set up a little test plot for the winter time there. Okay.
Well, you don't
Yeah.
call me, yeah?
That's right.
Yeah, that's why.
So you guys can connect.
Yeah, I say that I'm ready. Then anything that you guys need, just call me. I'm ready because now I'm not in school right now.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions about growing stuff in the winter, about certain types of things? Yes. Yes.
It's at the end of my backyard, but it's a big one. It doesn't separate.
Okay.
So do you recommend I separate them to small?
So okay, I have a good answer for that. Would you say it's bigger than the table here?
No, the balcony size.
About balcony size?
Along
Okay.
tackle size.
I would suggest that you would do something like this. If you see, I would recommend that you do something like this here. Okay. Now, I only say that if you want to be the one that you have to take care of it, right? So you have to make sure you can get to it during the winter time and stuff like that. But this is very, very easy to do. This plastic tubing is called conduit. It's spelled C-O-N-D-U-I-T, conduit. And you find it in the electrical aisle in hardware like Home Depot or Lowe's. It's very cheap and it's super flexible. And it comes in like 8 foot, 10 feet, 12 feet sections. And basically you can cut it with even something simple like scissors and you just have to bend it like that and stick it in the ground every couple feet. And then you can take your plastic. This is very cheap as well. And what I do is I put the plastic at one end, I use my staple gun, and I just go staple, 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 staple with one end, and I pull it over tight over the conduit, and I staple it there, and then I put a little bit on each end, and what you have to make sure that you do is that you've got to make sure that you have access in here as well. So you have to cut a few spots where you can reach in, and that will be sufficient for your garden. So it's very, very doable. Now the other thing you could do is if you see those old windows, is just get those old windows, and what I do is I put them at a 90-degree angle like this, and I put the end of the window here, and then I just take my drill and I go, and then I put it over my garden like this and the windows, and that's enough to keep things growing as well. That's very simple. And then in the springtime, when I don't need this anymore, I pick it up, I put it like this over in the corner of my yard. And then in the fall, I come back, I put it like that. Or if I need to put it over something that maybe I just planted it and I wanted to protect it so it's not too windy, I use those old windows all the time. I think they're great. I've also broken a lot of those windows and spent a lot of time picking up glass. So that's the only drawback about the window thing, is that they are old and they break, and I get yelled at a lot for broken glass. So another window broke, right? So which means I have to find more windows. And you see them all the time when you drive around the city, windows. Some people even use big things, like they'll use like patio windows. Like this person, let me show you here. This person here, this is a patio window that they used. This person used an old patio door window. Now, the only thing that I will say is we used these before as well, and they're very heavy, so they're even heavier with snow. So, I mean, that's another thing to think about. But patio doors work well, but you have to remember picking them up and moving them is heavy. So, that's why I like the little ones. And when I had a little thing where, yep.
Sorry, when you do those little ones, do you put plastic on the ends?
Well, I used more windows,
Okay.
but you could definitely, you want to create a bubble. So that's something to think about, is you always want to create a little air bubble. And that little air bubble heats up and gets nice and warm during the daytime. So anytime you have a draft, I mean, you could put plastic even over all the windows, and it's probably still going to get enough light. You won't have to worry about it. And that window frame would just be the support. And if you look at this person's display right here, you'll see that they used the conduits here. They used the conduit, and then they actually used a piece of wood down the middle here for strength. And so they put one piece up here, and thank you. They put one piece up in the middle and one at the far end, and one 2x4 all the way down to provide some strength for the plastic. These little kits that you can buy, they'll come with these little metal pieces. I'm telling you, they're junk. They're wasting your money. They fall apart, they rust, they're not stainless steel at all. You're better off using the stuff you can pick up off the curb. It'll last you longer. So those are ways that you can grow things during the winter time. How about more questions? Yes.
Do you use the window frames or use the glass?
You leave the glass in them, yeah. You leave the glass in it. Now, if there was a frame, you would have to cover it with plastic, and you could do that really easy. Or you could just create your own frame with scrap wood, like pallet wood and stuff like that. You can buy it by the foot at like Canadian Tire. It's very cheap. It's like a big piece might cost you $2 or $3. So very, very cheap. Okay.
How about rose? I have a rose, very high.
A rose bush?
Yeah, I need to cut this small size.
I would wait, yeah. If you're going to trim your rose bush, I would wait until after it gets colder. I wouldn't be trimming it yet. Some people Yesterday, I saw a whole bunch of trimming that had been done already on some roses and some other bushes, right? And for me, that's a little too early. I like to wait until it's colder out and everything stopped growing. So, Avril, do you have anything you want to add on that? So, in fact, I don't trim my grapes or my fruit trees until February. I trim it in February. I trim things back. So if you're going to trim roses, I wait until it's much colder out. Okay? It depends. Okay, so it depends on the style of rose bush. Is it a climbing rose?
Yeah.
It's a climbing rose.
Yeah.
So if you trim that rose bush back down to the ground, or as far down as you want, it will. The more that you trim it, the more vigorous it will grow. It likes to be trimmed. Some people trim it all the way down to a few inches above the rootstock. Some people leave them really high. You leave them high like that? Yeah, so they will, if you trim them to a certain height, that's where they're going to start growing from that height. Okay? So that's what you have to remember.
This one is better. Almost one.
We're getting into opinion now rather than fact. And my personal opinion is the lower you trim your rose bush, the healthier it will be. If you're going to leave it high like that, what's going to happen is if we have a very, very cold winter, that tall part of the rose bush is at risk for dying. It's going to be at risk for dying unless it's like a hardy northern type, like a wild rose where it won't be. But do you want to add something to that? Anyone else want to add anything about their roses experience?
I did it wrong. I already trimmed it, so I. No, I already trimmed it because it was getting really crazy onto the sidewalk. So, so I trimmed it back already like a month ago.
Yeah, and so when you're trimming things like the roses and stuff, when you're trimming it, you trim it back to where you see a little ring of green around it, where you know it's growing. So if you trim it and it's hard or breaks easy, that's dead and won't ever grow. It has to be alive. So just keep in mind that some things like those climbing roses that grow up, they will benefit from the more you trim it, the more you will make it want to grow. So yeah. And if you have roses that you're going to leave up this high, I would wrap that with burlap. Do you know burlap? You know what burlap? Like jute. Burlap. Burlap.
It's like twine.
Burlap. I will show you burlap.
It's like an old seed sack.
Potato sack. Burlap. Here we go, I got it. There we go, burlap. So that's burlap. Burlap. Sometimes they call it jute. So, jute. I would wrap after you've got it trimmed where you want, I would wrap it with burlap. That will protect it from the cold.
What size you suggest? Like this one?
As short as you're willing to go. As low as you're willing to go. So whatever you leave above is at danger. So I would wrap it right down to the ground. So yeah. It will grow right back again. Roses are really good at that. They're quick growers and they will all grow right back. And roses are one of those plants that like to be trimmed. They want to be trimmed. They don't want to go all crazy wild. They like to be trimmed down, and that will stimulate. That'll make them want to grow. So you're okay with them as long as the root is good.
Yeah.
Then those roses will grow forever, sort of thing, unless they get a disease. So put a little. Do you have any leaves near your house?
Yeah.
Yeah, just put some leaves around there.
Okay.
You know, around the root bed there, and they'll stay warm. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Go ahead.
So how about the blackberries, raspberries, and
You can't kill the, okay, so with your blackberries, you can trim them once, you can't kill them. It's almost impossible to kill. So I would trim them right down to the ground. Zoom right down to the ground. Same time you trim the roses.
Okay,
Same time. Wait for it to get a little chilly.
I will tell you.
Yeah.
When?
So when you see the leaves fall off, okay, when the leaves are gone, trim them. Okay? If you don't get it done, say it gets cold really quickly, you don't get it done, then do it before spring. So we're getting close to the time when you can start, and then do it before it starts to thaw. Do it in the winter time. Do it before the ice and snow leaves the ground. Trim it then. So if you forget to do it this fall, do it early spring, as soon as you can. And you can trim them right down to the ground.
strawberry or something?
Strawberries, I would use straw for strawberries. And strawberries, so strawberry patches, some people think that strawberry patches will grow forever, but that's not true. They may keep growing for a long time because they send out little baby plants, right? But the average life of a strawberry patch is about 5 to 7 years. So you need to always be making sure that you take those little baby plants and replant them. And with strawberries, I would just cover them in a big pile of straw.
Strawberry, last year I had strawberry.
Yes. Yeah, you can do that. You could. So.
Winter, spring.
Yeah, it's true. I probably wouldn't run them over with the lawnmower. I would probably just thin them out a bit and make sure that I planted any of the crowns, the crown part that roots. I would make sure that I had them stuck in the dirt. I would make sure that they're not too crowded out. Because what will happen is all you'll have is strawberry leaves and no strawberries. So if there's too many say this was my strawberry patch, and I covered it all with straw for the winter time, and it did a nice job, and then I opened it back up, and it was all beautiful and green. If there's too many of the strawberry plants in there's not going to be enough nutrients for the strawberries. You're going to get lots of leaves, and you're not going to get any strawberries. So I would actually thin it out a little bit and make sure that you see lots of flowers in there. If you don't see any of the blossoms in the springtime, then you maybe need to think about thinning out your strawberry patch, or taking some old strawberry plant and putting the new one in, and letting that one grow, or trimming it right down. So because it shouldn't be too crowded in there. Okay, it likes to be in. It likes to wander, and it likes to have space between the different plants. It doesn't like to be plant. It doesn't like that. So just pull some out. Give them to your friends. Yeah. Let them breathe. Strawberries like some space. They don't like to be crowded. So, more winter. Yes?
I just have a question. What kind of wood is best to make the boxes out of? Like, I know not pressure treated, but cedar is a good one.
If your budget allows, yeah, cedar's fine. Cedar is good.
Okay.
I have a different opinion than many people. I have used both cedar and non-cedar wood. I prefer to use cheap spruce.
Okay.
There are people out there, I think they belong to the cedar mill, who will tell you that the cedar is better because it's going to repel bugs and it's going to last longer. I'm going to tell you right now, I have seen no difference in boxes that I've built with cedar and spruce. None. They both go silver when they get old.
Right.
They both last just as long as the other. And I think the cedar factory wants you to buy cedar wood. Cedar smells nice. And I'd love to have a cedar deck and cedar boxes too. But it's 4 times the price. So when you're buying small little containers like that, it doesn't matter. But if you're buying a lot, I don't work for the government, so I can't afford cedar. So, yeah. So I'm going to also talk about free wood for you as well. So sometimes I use free wood or wood that I've reclaimed, and there's a couple things that I'll look for. I'll make sure that it's a pallet that hasn't been sprayed with chemicals. There's actually on the internet, you can get the codes that are stamped onto pallets to know if it's been sprayed with any types of chemicals to preserve it. If it's blue or it's all one color, I stay away from all those. I will only use a pallet that's just made of natural wood without anything on it. The other thing I don't use is I don't use any treated wood. I use just plain old wood, nothing but wood. So they tell me that the new pressure treated stuff is not
Full of arsenic?
They say that. I tend to not believe many people in the industries, so I stay away from it altogether. Plus, I don't like the look at it. It looks like it's been dipped in chocolate milk, so it looks yucky. So I just use plain, cheap, unfinished lumber. I will go out to McGregor's. There's a reclaiming place in McGregor. It's called Gagne's, and it's like a junkyard for people like myself, and they'll have old wood out there, wood that's 100 years old, and I'll buy old wood. I know it's just plain old wood sort of thing. So I'm very cheap. I look for free things. I try to spend as little as money as possible, and you don't need a lot of money. Sometimes instead of a nice big cedar box, a 5-gallon pail with a few holes in the bottom will work just fine. If you're tight for money, then don't spend all that money. If you're doing it to make things look beautiful around the front of your house, maybe the 5-gallon bucket's not a good idea. Maybe you want it to look prettier than that. So just use plain wood, and if you don't like the color of it, paint it. Stain it. You just use some sort of thing to put it whatever color you want. But try not to spend a lot of money on these things. So it's just the businesses that want you to do that. So you can make things work very functionally without spending a lot of money. Yeah?
And what is the minimum depth that you need?
I like to, anything at 2 feet-ish is good. But I'm going to qualify that. If I was growing lettuce, that's deep enough. That's deep enough. I could line up, and many people here that have been here before have seen this. I would fill this with Tim Horton cups, poke holes in the bottom, and plant different kinds of lettuces, and I would be able to use that cup for 2 years.
I've seen his greenhouse, it's
Yes.
true.
So you don't have to do things expensive. If you go to my office right now, I have 3 large stacks of Tim Horton cups. And I just poke a hole in the bottom, I fill it with potting soil, I sprinkle on my salad seeds, and I just give it a little bit of water like that, and it grows beautiful. And I can even dump that out, mix up all the dirt, put it back in there, and use that cup a second year. That's how good these cups are. And they give them to you free. So.
Put this in a small greenhouse and put the greenhouse on our deck.
Yes, that's what I do that too. Or you could use like a container, like a tub, or something like this. Just put the little cups in there like that, and put a lid on top. I was going to bring it. I have ones that the lids go like this. They fold over, and it's high enough. It's about this high, and you can put the little cups in there. Put it on your porch or something like that. It would grow just fine. It's going to get enough sun and stuff like. If it's minus 30 or something like that, I might bring it in. But most of Windsor's winter, it's going to grow just fine if it's on the south side, and it's not. It's going to get some protection from the wind and elements, and it's near your house. It's going to grow beautiful. So, just remember, if you bring that in the house, your cats will also love it. Probably your dogs too. So, and your bunnies.
Sorry, and that's the best thing is lettuce.
Lettuce, parsley, herbs. They will all grow in there like that. When you get to the larger things such as kale or Swiss chard, you will have to keep harvesting them as the leaves grow, because when you get into things like kale and chard and stuff like that, they form a really thick root. And so if you grow them, you will be able to start them in the cup, but in the springtime you're going to have to transplant them into your garden because it wants to grow a nice big thick stalk. Now, I'm going to also, just before we finish up, I want to talk to you, to anybody who has that left in their gardens. If you have broccoli, kale, Swiss chard, Brussels sprouts, which has an S on the end, by the way, it's Brussels sprout, weird, but it's true. All those things, don't pull them up. Leave them in your garden. Leave your parsley, leave your spinach, all those things will continue to grow in your garden right now. Even if you've cut off the stalk of your broccoli or cut off the stalk of your kale and there's only a little bit left, leave it. It will continue to grow right through the winter time. Sarah?
I was going to ask about that. So I had those little, are they like white bugs or something like that? They're really little.
The gray ones?
Yeah, gray.
You have to cut it away until it's gone.
So just, yeah, because I
got
had to
it.
stop using
Yeah.
like eating the one kale. This chard was fine, but
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
so
they
just
will
cut it.
only attack like your stuff like your
Is there any
broccoli
that-
and it'll attack kale as well.
I thought
Certain
I-
varieties of kale. Yeah, so you have to. It's once it's got that, you got to cut it right back to the stem, right down.
I was
So,
concerned that they would like lie dormant in the like soil over, and it will happen again next year. I wasn't sure if I should.
no,
Yeah,
they're
they'll just-
they're seasonal, so they're blown in. So you know now I do believe strongly in crop rotation. So I might, if I noticed that I had that in one place, I might not grow the same thing there the next year. I have this one kale plant. It's my seed kale plant, the one that I use for seeds. And it's been in my ground for 2 years now, and 3 years, and this will be the 4th year. It's still there. It's the same plant. And every year I let it grow as big as it grows. It has the nice yellow flowers on it, and the butterflies come, and then they turn into the seeds, and then the birds come and they eat some of the seeds, and then I clip all those little seed pods off and I smash them in a plastic bag and I save it. But that's a perennial plant. It's warm enough in zone 6 that this kale plant will continue to live and live and live. And even though I'll take my knife and I'll cut it off at the bottom, it'll grow right back again next year. So, and it's had that. And this year I didn't have any, mostly because it was so dry. So sometimes it's because it became susceptible because it was wet for a long time. We had that really wet period, and that's when we got it this year. Is that late wet period that we had in late August, September. So.
And if you don't put plastic on them, they'll still keep growing. But
Those are you don't need to put a tunnel or a plastic over kale. If you do that with Swiss chard, kale, and stuff like that, it will still grow. It might grow a little faster. It might even be too warm for them in there because it's gonna have it's a tall plant. It will grow up, right? I wouldn't put my kale and stuff like that unless I'm planting it by seed and harvesting the little leaves. I wouldn't put my big stalks under plastic because it's happy with the cold.
okay.
In fact, you shouldn't even be harvesting Brussels sprouts right now. You should be harvesting them in late December, January. So is when you need to be harvesting those. So a lot of Americans will harvest them for Thanksgiving. Their Thanksgiving, not ours. That's when they'll harvest their Brussels sprouts. So late November is a good time when they've had a nice crisp frost, and make them turn them sweet. So, yeah. And if you one other thing with the peas, if you're planting peas right now, don't forget the whole pea tendril when it's small, this tall, is very very edible. It can be used in your salad. It is delicious. So, in fact, my Chinese neighbor behind me always wanted all my pea tendrils. I'm like, no, I want the pea pods, and he says, I want the pea I just want the vines. So, and I'm like, but if I give you that, then I get the peas. So I told him, just plant those, because he eats the pea tendrils, and they're perfect to grow right now because they'll grow slow and short, and they're perfect for your salad. So, And all this information is on the website, courtesy of Blah Blahs. So, yeah. So November 24th, I'm going to have a whole series here on microgreens. How to grow all kinds of little microgreens in mason jars. And I'm going to bring a bunch of varieties and show you what it looks like and how easy it is. And that's on November 24th. So,
Do you believe
yeah,
that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But it's November 24th at... Oh, it's an evening one. November 24th at 7 p.m. Thursday. So, if that's all, thank you very much for coming, everyone. Yes, go ahead.
No drinks. Those